Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. I've been walking for a very long time, so I'm a little exhausted, but it'll be fine. Today we're going to be looking at an area known as Kottbusser Tor, still in Berlin, which is one of the most infamously popular known spaces in the entire city. It actually has a place next to my heart. It was one of the first places that I ever went to when I actually visited here. So I'm going to show it to you. It's very well known, so get ready. So as usual, I'm expecting tons of stairs as I walk through this area. This area is a lot of things. It was originally known in the 1970s. I've told you all this before. Every time I have gone somewhere, lived somewhere, I like to learn about the places because I think it seems a little weird if I don't know about where I'm actually going. So this area, at least in the 70s and 80s, was actually known as normally as SO36. That was the previous postal code for this area. It's now, I don't remember what the postal code for this area actually is, but it was the reason why a lot of the popularity of the SO36 label kind of took hold around here. So this is as you first enter it, it's actually very pretty. For those of you who don't know, Berlin has a lot of cherry trees and they're actually beginning to bloom right now. There are a lot of them, especially in the spring and summertime. Usually the white and or pink variations, depending on where you are in the city. This area, like many other places, was known and still is known as in place where immigrants live. This is mainly because, as I mentioned before in other videos, during the 1960s and 1970s, Germany required a lot of, extra help after the war was done. A lot of the people who settled in this area were actually Turkish and or Arab, and a lot of them still remain here today. This area is, as I said before, very well known, but usually because of its crime. In the 80s and 90s, it became incredibly well known and even became known in the mid 2000s propaganda-wise as a no-go area within Germany. The idea basically being that there was so much crime here that it was basically a place that no one should be going to, but a lot of that is completely overstated. The idea is that in the 80s and 90s, this was a border district, the same exact one, similar to the one that we saw a couple of days ago called Neukölln. We were walking along the Sonnenallee, and basically, for lack of a better term of it, what happened is people who didn't have money were kind of pushed to these districts, as these were the districts that bordered the previous Berlin Wall, and a lot of other, I'll just be frank, what basically happened in this area is that during the 70s and 80s, a lot of the Nazis were also pushed out of their areas as well, as no one really wanted them. So they actually ended up coming to these areas. And what happened is that a lot of the migrants in the 70s and 80s did not care for the idea of living next to Nazis. Sorry if it sounded the train was too loud. Did not care to live next to Nazis, so there were a lot of street fights. And the people who were blamed for this were the actual migrants, as opposed to the Nazis who were causing the actual problem. So this is why it became known as a troubled district. You also might see sometimes, if I see any indication of it, signs going over once again the SO36. A lot of stores are called 36, or like something 36. It has to do once again with the former postal code. But in the 80s and 90s, there was actually a group of young guys who formed a gang, and they became known as the SO36. There were also other gangs not in this area, but around the city, who were also of Turkish descent, who became known as the Warriors and the Black Panthers, and many times they actually joined forces to be able to street fight with Nazis. Kind of crazy. A lot of the history gets thrown away, and a lot of people tend to associate the title SO36 with a club that is somewhere around that street if you continue down that way. Even you can see right here, I don't know if you can see across the street, it says Street Coffee 36. The 36 is everywhere, as this was the former postal code. It became incredibly famous. And a lot of people have just kind of kept it. This area is now known as an incredibly popular tourist destination. There are a lot of cafes, a lot of street art. Let's see if I'll be able to go through any of these side streets as well to really give you an indication of just how popular the area is. In the early 2000s, when Germany began to inject an enormous amount of money into the area, this was expected to be one of the first areas that was going to heavily gentrify, and it actually didn't. It actually relatively stayed the same exact way that it was before. There have been some improvements to the metro station right here, and also to some supermarkets, what have you. They've built a Bürgermeister here, which is, if you've never had it before, it's quite delicious. They have really good burgers. I'll even show you some of the prices. It's not too expensive, it's also very good. Yeah. So this area was expected. I remember there were tons of protests around 2010, 2011, 2012. As money began to move into the other districts, a lot of new builds, a lot of new buildings began to be built. And people thought that this area was going to be either demolished or built on top of. And therefore a lot of the people here would be displaced. A lot of that has happened. A lot of the rent has gone up, but a large portion of the real estate around here is actually social housing from the government. So a huge portion of the population is still here, who lived here for, since the 70s. See, it says Casino 36. This is one of the, I think, largest housing blocks. I don't know if it's in Europe, but it's very famous. Part of the issue is that, especially if you have ever looked at a documentary of this area, it's known now as I want to say a crime hotspot, but it's known as an area where a large number of people do have problems with drugs and or narcotics, or have problems with addiction, and they tend to hang around this area. More specifically, even if you look down the street, it's kind of known as the area where people go to, so a lot of times at nighttime you will see tons and tons of cops around this area who are constantly patrolling, a lot of undercover cops as well, walking the area at nighttime sometimes. If you go into the metro, you see them even chasing after people. This is a very popular fruit stand here as well. It's always been here for as long as I can remember. Okay, alles klar. Yeah. I don't know if you know, a lot of this area is, in Germany in general, I think, is very well known for the word's not privacy. I guess it's somewhere along there. There's like a general distrust of, electronics sounds weird, but there's a reason why this country has remained, me and my friend a lot of times, we laugh and joke about it because this area is kind of stuck in like the 1980s, not only based on the way that people dress, but kind of the general mentality as well. You'd be hard pressed a lot of times to actually be able to even find places to be able to pay with card. It's almost non-existent in many places. It was only until Corona happened, when I came back to visit, that you see a lot of places began to actually have signs, "Can you please pay in card?" And I thought that was actually quite funny, because it took a pandemic and people not wanting to touch each other to actually cause that change. So yeah, a lot of times, I'm sure you've also seen in my other videos, when I walk past people, a lot of times they'll give me like a very, not a nasty look, but they'll kind of look at me in kind of a very different way, simply because a lot of people don't want to be filmed. And I think it also has to do, if I can be honest, a lot with the area. So this, as you can see right here, is part of the reconstruction projects. So they are even building kind of attached onto it. I'm not sure if you can see, this is the building that we were looking at on the other side, that a lot of people were very afraid of for a long time would be demolished, but now they're simply kind of attaching buildings into it. As real estate around here has become incredibly expensive. I doubt many of you have probably seen my other channel where I talk about finance, but I'm really into real estate, so I used to look at property prices for this entire city, and you could find a studio, a one bedroom in this area for anywhere from 45, maybe 55,000 euros, 55, 60,000 US dollars. These places have quadrupled in price and are now extremely expensive. So thus the building continues. A very, very popular area. It's actually not, it's really funny. No matter where I film, there's always extremely loud music no matter where I go. This is actually, I mean, when I first ever visited here in 2009, this was one of the first areas that I was taken to, because even then it was seen as like a very cool district. But you can see a lot of that is beginning to change, even with a lot of the restaurants and a lot of the vegan shops, the pho places that are around here as well. It continues to change, but there's still a lot of pushback in this area, as one could imagine, as many people don't want to be thrown out of their homes. There are constant protests as well. There was a situation a couple of years ago where there's a gigantic company called Deutsche Wohnen, which everyone in the city does not like, who basically were buying up as many properties in the entire city as they could. I think people found out that they owned more than 30,000 flats, and there was a gigantic amount of pushback against that, because their entire idea was they were going to buy everything within the city, because if you own everything, you can dictate the prices of everything. But luckily, a large portion of that was not demolished, but kind of like broken apart. But there's still tons of private investors who are often trying to still buy tons of property around here. A lot of restaurants in this area. Yeah. Oh, green. Okay. It's so funny trying to, I don't know if you've ever walked down the street holding a camera while trying to look at things, but also not trying to fall as you're walking. So this is called Oranienstraße. If you see, if I can zoom in, yeah. There's also another very popular street. A friend of mine, when I first moved here, I thought it was very funny because she told me that this was kind of the area to move to. You gotta move to this area. And I was looking at flats around here, but even now you can tell it's extremely loud. There's always something going on. There's always some type of movement happening. And there are a lot of festivals and a lot of parties and a lot of things that go on around here. We're also gonna be walking relatively close to the SO36 Club that I was telling you about. That's kind of the infamous space. It's known kind of as the club of all the, you know, all the sex symbols and all the party animals of the 1970s, where they used to go. David Bowie, I think, used to also live in this area, and he's known to have frequented SO36 as well. So it's still standing. I think I've been inside once. I don't really even remember, but it's incredibly popular. So a lot of this area has been kind of, sorry if you hear the police sirens, I told you about the area. It's also, and to be clear, this is also a very safe area. It is one of, how do I say this? So every single district in the city doesn't have, there is a city center in the center of the city, obviously, in the area called Mitte, M-I-T-T-E, which stands for middle. However, every district was actually its own city at some point. So every single district does have its own little city center, and the one where we just were, at Kottbusser Tor, that is kind of the city center for this area. If that makes any sense, probably not. There's also a very famous shop down there called WayAway. A lot of people tend to frequent if you are into designer and luxury clothing in the area. Lost my train of thought. Forgot what I was saying. Yeah, but the area is very popular. I decided not to move here years ago simply because it gets very loud at nighttime, and I didn't really think it was too worth it. But on weekends, it's a fun place to go to. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's not a dangerous area. I think a lot of times, especially if you are from anywhere in North America, or any other kind of place, you tend to see huge amounts of graffiti, which Berlin has, and it automatically kind of symbolizes danger in some sort of way for you. But it has a very different energy if you're actually in the city. If you ever get the chance, this is a very good bowl place as well. If you ever get the chance to actually visit Berlin, try to stay for at least a week or two. You know, this may not be the area for everyone. I had friends staying in this area before, and they thought I was absolutely insane for requesting that they stay here. But you learn very quick Not only is it not dangerous, it's actually very friendly. Germans can be very closed off, but open at the exact same time, as long as you're nice to them. Especially if you don't speak German, just, ask politely, do you speak English? A lot of times people come here and they walk into a store and automatically demand that someone speak English to them, and that wouldn't go well anywhere. If somebody from Japan walked into a store in New York and began speaking Japanese, a lot of people would look at him like, okay, sir, what exactly are you doing? This is the famous club right here, the SO36 Club. It doesn't look big from the outside, but I think it actually goes in pretty far. You can see all the upcoming shows and stuff like that they have going on here. And then around here, there are tons and tons of restaurants. I'm not sure if you can even feel the vibe through the actual, I don't think you would be able to, but I've grown up in places and seen places that have tons of graffiti everywhere, and they're not the nicest, but it's kind of just the area. It kind of just is the city, if you will. Berlin's a very grungy place. It's a very underground place. It's a very artsy place. It's a place basically for people who are, I don't know. I feel like Berlin is like a very in-between city. It's a very relaxing place to live. It's not very expensive. It's just a very chill place to be. This is one of the most popular squares. There's actually a park directly down the end of that street. And this entire square, especially during a weekend, is completely full of people at all the cafes and all the restaurants. This is also one of the kind of the hot spots for, what do you call it? For festivals. So on the 1st of May, Germany celebrates May Day, which is just kind of a festival celebrating, I think, I want to say workers' rights, but I feel like that is completely incorrect. And a lot of the partying actually happens around here. That's why, once again, I didn't really want to live around here, just because it seemed a bit too much. Unless you're really into that thing, then, go for it. Try and show you some of these street art around here as well. There's also actually a very famous one around the corner. I'm gonna go see if I can show you that one too. There are, if you are interested, I do not run them. However, there are free art tours in the city as well. You can find a couple of them. There's a couple really popular ones. You're kind of expected at the very end. You don't have to leave them like a little tip or something like that. You can leave them €2 or €3. I usually leave them $5. It's about a 2-hour tour. And you can actually see, they take you to all the most famous spots in the city that have the largest pieces of art, because art here is completely everywhere. It's not legal per se to draw on the walls. You can see all the constant construction everywhere. There's also construction behind me. But this is one of the most popular pieces of art right here. I think it's a German artist. There's another district not too far from here where there was a gigantic piece of art. Something similar to this on the empty side of a building. It was completely flat, so nothing was built next to it, and the company bought it. How far away is that? It's not that far from here, actually. And the company actually bought it because of the art that was on it. The idea being they could make a little bit more of a profit because they actually have the building that has the art from the famous artist. And it was a very big thing that in the nighttime, the artist found out that the building had been sold. They had the piece of art on it, and he, in midnight, went to the building, painted over it himself, and in the morning, the company found just a gigantic blank spot. It was as if the wall had never been painted on. A lot of people took that as a bit of a victory, but if you know how money works, the company didn't really care. They still owned the building. They made it into luxury housing. It just would have been more of a selling point if they had his art, but yeah. It's an incredibly interesting district. I feel like I should be translating everything because I feel like a lot of people don't speak German, but I don't know. I think you get the general gist if we walk by a store that has clothing, that it's a clothing store, not like anything else. A lot of the building entrances look like this. It's almost done on purpose. I knew a couple of people when I first moved here, when they were first trying to like clean up the area, air quotes, who basically told me, see the 36 right here? Who told me that they were trying to make the area dirtier to disincentivize investors from coming into the area. But a lot of people actually like this. This is actually a complete style for a lot of people who have money because they want to live in a grungier space. Telling you all the secrets here, but it's kind of how it is. A lot of people with money tend to live in very clean cities, so the idea of them living in an alternative space is actually something that they want. Very good Indian restaurant here. Hopefully you can see all the prices. It's incredibly delicious. Hallo. Hey. They have I think this is the chain. They have a couple of these around the city, but it's all very, very delicious. They also have a, if you come to Germany, always look for the lunch menu, or like, I think it's called like a midday menu or something like that, where you get the best kind of deals. Like this place behind me, I'm sure they still have the deal. You're able to get a soup, a salad, rice, main course, and I think like some naan bread is around €6, 50, maybe like $7.50. So a lot of places, like, I mean, even in like the richer areas, they all have some type of a meal deal like this. Yeah, so this is the area of the Kottbusser Tor. It actually ends right exactly where that street is. I believe this is, almost dropped my phone, look at that. I think this area is, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. Hope you all enjoyed the tour of this area. If you ever have a chance, when you're in Berlin, try to come here, have a little walk around. It's a very nice area, it's a very safe area, regardless of all the graffiti. It's a very popular touristy area as well. If you happen to be here on the 1st of May, come here for one of the many festivals. I do hope you all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are. Wherever you might be, I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching and or listening, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.